Good afternoon to everyone today to our open webinar. Today we are going to cover XenServer with Failover, with ISCSI Failover, and we are going to use Multipath in our configuration. So first we will show the details about ISCSI Failover configuration for Multipath. Then we will see what we need to change or what we need to configure in the XenServer in order to activate Multipath, and we will test the environment with Failover and Failback, and we will use Windows 2008 virtual machine running on XenServer. Okay, that's quite short today. Let me switch to our chart. Okay, I will show you first what I have prepared from the DSS side. Okay, of course we need two servers. So the first server is the name DSS 230, and the second one DSS 240. The number coming from the ending from the IP address. So that will be easy on the web GUI to recognize which one we are just using. Both servers have 4 network interface cards. Okay. The first NIC, so ETH0, I have configured GUI access here, and also so-called auxiliary connection, it means heartbeat connection on both sides. So here we use 192.168.0.230, and in the same subnet 0.240 on the secondary server. Then on the last card, as ETH3, we have a point-to-point, so direct connection. Optionally, we can use switch, but we recommend to use direct connection. There will be advantage when both switches are dead, so we still have a communication between two nodes, and in such case there will be no reason for failover. So here I use IP 192.168.3 and then 230, so the subnet 3, and the same subnet 3 on the right side with 240. Good. And then ETH1 and ETH2, here I will configure on these both cards, we will configure so-called virtual IP. So on the ETH1 we will configure 192.168.10.250. That will be exactly same IP address on the primary and on the secondary server, of course. And on the next card we will configure 192.168.20.250. Both cards will have, of course, the same virtual IP. We'll see it also in the GUI. Next thing I want to point to you is a ping node. So please note I have ping node which is 192.168.1, subnet 1, and my node ping node .6, okay? And one more, maybe ping node or the same computer in my case, but better will be another one with 192.168 and subnet 2.6. Why 1 and why 2? As you see, the client storage access, both cards are 1 and 2. Here same, 1 and 2. So for the first card, we have the ping node 192.168.1.6, and for the second we have a 2.6. The ping node we need in the case when we want to be sure that the network has access to our storage, because the ISCSI failover storage is accessed over virtual IP. So that's these two virtual IP, and real IP, it's 192.168.1.230 and 2.230, and in this subnet we must have the ping node. Because let's say we are losing the connection on the both cards, then in such case both cards will lose access to the ping node, and this will be the signal for our cluster manager to start failover. It means to switch activity to the secondary server. If the one only is missing, then nothing happened because the second ping node still is reachable. And also because we have two cards, so multipath, when the one path is missing, then the second path is still available, and we will have access to the system. So that's kind of example configuration which you can also use on your site. The best practice will be direct connection between two cards. If not possible, this will be not a very big disadvantage if you go over the switch, but there is a advantage because if let's say two switches are dead at the same time, then of course we will lose the access to the storage from our client, but nothing happened in the ISCSI Failover manager. So primary will stay active and the secondary will stay passive. Okay, that's our chart, and let us go over configuration in the DSS V6. Okay, so I will switch to another machine. Okay, as I mentioned already, DSS 230 and DSS 240, that's the name of the servers are configured under network interfaces under server name. That's the server name, and this server name also appear here in the browser tab. Okay, so the first step of configuring ISCSI failover is, of course, we need to create ISCSI block IO volumes on the both servers. We want block IO because block IO is the only 100% reliable way for switching in case of power failure or some other hardware failure. We have also FireIO ISCSI volumes, but if you want 100% consistency after the failure, please use block IO only. So the first step will be in the volume group. The volume group is created, volume group 00, and we need to just create ISCSI block IO volume, which is for volume replication. So I have already created this, so this is block IO, ISCSI volume, for volume replication, and this is only 150 gigabyte. On the both sides, you must create, of course, identical volumes. Then when you will create this volume, you will select new ISCSI volume. You can assign a target, but in our case, just create the volume because we will need the target, identical target name on the both sides. And then we will also select this one, use volume replication, block IO is default, and just the size, and apply. I will not create another one because it will be easier for us to make the presentation. So once the volume is created on the primary server, you need to do the same on the secondary server. And as you see on the secondary server, we have created exactly identical volumes, so both are 150 gigabyte, and the both are block IO, and the both are created for replication. If you forget create for replication, just on the beginning, probably faster will be delete the volume, the ISCSI volume fresh created and recreate for replication, because when the both are created for replication from scratch, then system will not need to initialize the volume because system will know both are empty. If you will later change the type, like here, modify the volume, and then you will add this checkbox and apply. So it will of course convert a volume which is not for replication. It will add the metadata, and then in this case you will have the volume for replication, but when you will start the volume replication task, it will need to initialize. So the 150 gigabytes will copy from the primary server to the secondary server. Okay, maybe few words about what kind of system I'm using for DSS. The best, of course, is when both systems are identical, but it is not a must. In my case, the systems are totally different. The first is a real entry-level server with the hardware RAID controller. So in my system I'm using Arica RAID controller, and this is a fast RAID because I'm using RAID 5 with SAS drives. So there are 15,000 IPM SAS drives. Okay, as you see, it's a Seagate SAS, which is very small capacity, 75 gig only. Good. And on the second system, I'm using just a workstation, and it is even a very slow workstation, just Atom-based CPU workstation, and I'm using a software RAID. Okay, so I have 4 hard disks and the software RAID. Okay, so let us go to the next step after creating logical volumes. So after creating logical volumes, we need to start volume replication. So on the primary server, when I click on the volume replication function, on the primary server, of course I have a source, and on the secondary server, I will need to switch the source mode, which is coming by default, to destination. Okay. So it is switched already. So as you see, I have the destination already. When you will just start from scratch, the checkbox will be at the source. You need to just click here and apply. When you set the mode, next step is you need to set the IP address of the second server. So in my case, this is a 240 server, so I know that and I'm replicating in the subnet 3, so my IP is 192.168.3 and 230, okay? That's the IP of the primary server. And on that was settings on the secondary. Now we are changing to primary server, and in the primary server, opposite, we just put IP of the secondary server. Good. And here our task is started. So once we have the configuration done, then will be option to create the task. The task name is not really important, but in my case I just put M for mirror and the logical volume 00, 0. Okay, and the task is started, and it is started how to say, forever. It is started once only without any schedule, because this works like RAID 1 but over IP. So this is a mirroring of the 2 volumes over IP. So this is all the time switched on. There is option for putting schedule here, but this is only for some particular application when the people want to only run this, how to say, mirroring service over the night only. Okay, so our mirror is started. Next layer is to assign a target for the iSCSI volume, for the replicated iSCSI volume. So on the configuration iSCSI targets, we need to create 2 targets with identical name. So we have some default target name, which is proposed by the system, but when we remove this check box, then we can edit and we can enter the target name which we want. So let's say test. So you can enter the target name which you are going to use, and then you can copy this and let's cut or paste. You can copy this and create exactly the same target name on the secondary server. So on the secondary server, you will go to the same menu, targets, and remove the checkbox and edit, okay, and paste the target name which you copy from the first server. Of course, I have already created this identical target name. Let us see what is the name. The name, when you click on the alias, this is target alias, has no meaning from for external, only internal. The real target name is here, so it's IQN 2011-01 Xen Demo. That's the target name. Also, when you edit this, you will see here in the function rename target, you see also the full target name which appear on external in the network for the initiator. Okay. Of course, after creating the target, you need to click on the plus button. Before clicking on the plus button, you need to enter SCSI ID and LUN. You will start with LUN 0, and for the volume 00, you can just enter SCSI ID 000. For the volume 01, 000, and 1 on the end, for example, to easy remember the SCSI ID. The SCSI ID must be identical on the both sides. Okay, so we plus the button is pressed, the same on the primary server. You see we have identical SCSI ID and identical LUN number, okay, and identical target name. So that was the next step. After creating the logical volume and creating replication, so we have created identical target names with the identical parameters, and the last is already we need to create ISCSI failover that will be so-called virtual IP and will be ISCSI failover management. Okay, so on the both server, we need to go to the menu setup ISCSI failover, and at this point, as you see, service is already running. Here we have primary active, and here we have secondary passive. Okay. In order to show how to configure, I can stop the service. So now let me see. In order to stop the service, I will maybe stop also the virtual machine which is running right now. So at this point, the machine is running. Okay, so I will shut down this. Okay. Okay, shut down. Whoa, it looks like I have shut down wrong machine. I'm very sorry about it. I have shut down wrong machine. I wanted to shut down the virtual machine, and I shut down my access machine. Okay, so but by meantime, I will start the GUI here. It happens. Sorry about it. we will continue on my desktop. Good. Okay. I need to open both DSS. Okay. 192.168.240. Good. Okay, so I will need to power on the machine by meantime. So it is primary active. And okay. Of course, you see what happened, that I lost the access to my ping nodes because by the case I was configuring the ping nodes on this machine. I will show you why, how I was doing this. I was doing this with the alias. Okay, so primary active. Let me switch on the machine because machine was shut down. I need 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about this. This is a kind of disaster, but we will be back in a minute. One. Okay, I will explain to you what happened. The ping nodes I have configured also on this machine. So the machine which I shut down was IP0.6, and I have configured another two alias IP, which was a 1.6 and a 2.6. Okay. And that is the reason that I lost now both IP addresses. So my ping nodes are failed. Good. Let me, before I will continue, I can stop the service. Okay. Then I can demonstrate now that how I will lose the access to the virtual machine, and I will lose the access to the Xen because I'm waiting for the server. But okay, this is also good. We have stopped the service, and Okay, you see the ping nodes are coming back. So we have stopped the service. On the both server, service is just inactive. Okay, and what we can configure here, the first thing which you enable or disable is a failover configuration. First, when you come the first time to this function, you will have the failover configuration disabled. So you need to click on it in order to enable. Then you need to select the type of the communication between modes. We have the broadcast. Broadcast will send the signals to the all nodes into the network. And the unicast, and the unicast will send the signals only to the one particular node which is configured in the cluster. Because unicast is causing less traffic in the network, so it is probably more stable and more practical way of configuring ISCSI failover cluster. But broadcast can be easier because you just need to enter a broadcast and you don't need to enter the IP addresses of the opposite side. We have selected unicast, so we'll have to enter the IP addresses for the opposite side for all these hard-built connections, so that will be a bit more typing, but it's worth it to do it. Then next is we need to select the interface on which these both nodes will communicate each other. So on this interface, these nodes communicate each other in order to replace the messages about status of the cluster, and when configuring the cluster and when stopping the cluster, over this interface both negotiate. Okay, so we can select the first one, the same over which we use also GUI access. And when this is selected, we need to enter whether it is primary node or the secondary node. When I select the primary node, then of course I need to enter IP of the secondary node. In such case, when I selected this ETH0, so subnet 0, so that must be the same subnet on the second server. Okay, and now ping nodes. The ping nodes, we strongly recommend to put the ping node exactly on this network interface card where virtual IP is working. So in our case, we are going to use 2 virtual IP, so at least we will have 2 ping nodes. So the first one is on the subnet 1 because the ETH0 is in, 1 is in subnet 1 and ETH2 is in subnet 2. So this is, please note that this is the physical range of the address, not the virtual. Okay, there are some questions coming, let me see. There are questions, can I call the meeting room number? Sorry, I didn't, sorry, we are not using the telephone, only the NetViewer voice over IP. The next question was, what is the best solution in your opinion, hardware rate or software rate? Okay. Of course, for the production and the good performance, hardware rate is better than software rate. Software rate is improving over the time, and sooner or later we'll have similar functionality, but it will never have special features which are available only for hardware, like battery backed up cache dedicated for the hardware, dedicated parity calculator. So of course the card which is dedicated for this function will work better than just software on the CPU. And we'll have, of course, more functions, especially last time when there are available so-called battery, zero battery with big capacitors options and cache options for the RAID. Good. So the questions are answered. Okay, let us come back. So here we have configured already the ping nodes. If you have more ping nodes available, let's say in subnet 1, you may have another computer where you can add alias, and in the subnet 2 that will be better because we need stable ping nodes. And if one ping node is missing, then we check another ping node. So for the very stable configuration will be good when you are in a position to provide 2 ping nodes per every segment here. Okay. So on the secondary server, we will configure opposite. So all these settings are the same. Instead of primary, we select secondary, and of course, we enter primary IP node. Good. When these settings is done, then the next point we need to enter virtual IP addresses and the so-called auxiliary connection for the Ethernet card. This is a must, and what we say on the first card when the unicast works, this is by default switch on, and you need to enter the IP address of the opposite side. So on this ETH0 is in subnet 0, so my IP is 240, that's easy. There is no virtual IP on this NIC. On the next network interface card, you see we start already with virtual IP. Broadcast is of course in the same subnet 10, but has the last segment 255. Okay, that's the virtual IP, and we have also enabled the heartbeat connection on this NIC. Same thing will be on the second side. Okay, so let me refresh it because I didn't see the NIC. Okay, ETH1, you see, is exactly the same IP address, 192.168.10.250. Okay, good. Then we go to the next. In the next, we have second virtual IP, so 192.168.20.250. And of course, we have also auxiliary connection activated. Same thing on the secondary server. This is just a mirror connection, identical, only the IP are on opposite side, okay? But the virtual IP is identical, of course. And the last one, we have the auxiliary connection also here. It is not a must. Actually, 2 is the minimum. But if you configure on another one, then there is more way to communicate between each other. So I have 4 cards, and on the 4 cards I have enabled this auxiliary connection. So same here. I just need to enter the opposite IP, and that's the case. Good. When this is done, then we can click on the failover configuration again, and then we can go to the next step, which is assigning the tasks which need to be switched on. So in my case, I have only one task, because we have only one logical volume, ISCSI logical volume pair. So this one task, if you have more, then of course you will enter more. You need to select them and apply. So this is the information for the failover manager, which logical volumes need to be activated after failover and which need to be switched if they are accessible as a destination to primary server. So this is for switching this mode active, passive, or source destination. Okay, and now we can already try to start the failover manager. So when I click on the start button, both systems will negotiate over the first ETH0, and we'll try to configure both servers for the ISCSI failover. Okay. Let me see by meantime whether my server for sure is available. Okay, I made mistake and shut down wrong server. Okay. We see here there is a progress in configuration. So when waiting for this configuration to be done, I will show you that the ping nodes are really configured here. So on this server, I have configured network, okay, manage network connections, and here in the properties, TCP IP advanced, you can see when I click on edit, so one is missing. How happened? I didn't save it. So here the main IP address is 06, and I have an alias here, so 192.168.2.6. Probably it was, probably I know it was a conflict in IP addresses. So when I enter one more, okay, 1.6. Okay, there is a conflict. Okay, so in this case, I will need to select another IP address, but you will see that when it's only one of them, edit, is working, then it's okay. Good. You can select such an alias on the few stable servers, and in such case you will have the stable IP node in this subnet which you need. Okay, coming back to our cluster, so we got the message that configuration finished successfully, and we can prove the settings. So this node is primary active, and the secondary node is, of course, secondary passive. Okay, and both ping nodes are answering properly, and the communication over 4 cards, because this communication is for this auxiliary connection, are also okay. And task status on the secondary is stopped, of course, and this prepared a reverse task just in case we will do feedback. And on the primary, the task is of course running, and it is showing, when I click on this button, it is showing the status of the destination volume, and it must be consistent. When this is consistent, it means they are both in mirror. Okay, and since the service is started, our virtual IP are available. So these two virtual IP, which is 192.168.10.250 and the 20.250, are available since the cluster is started. Before ISCSI configuration is started and running, these IP addresses are of course not available. They are virtual IP addresses, and these virtual IP addresses is always, how to say, linked to the active node. So now the primary has an active status, so this linked to primary, and after failover, secondary server will have an active status and will be linked to the secondary. Okay, that is a DSS configuration, and let us start the Citrix XenServer in order to access our Citrix XenServer host. So my Citrix host is in 192.168.0.7. Okay, I have a one host, and as you see, I have already added the ISCSI virtual storage, and I have this virtual machine running, which I was going to stop. So this virtual machine is still running. I can I can shut down this machine now properly. So let me connect to this machine. I will connect over console as well. Okay, so that's the console. So now I'm already in this machine. Okay, I can shut down now proper machine. Okay, good. Do I shut down proper machine? I don't want to make this mistake one more time. Okay. And now we'll see that this machine will change the status from green to red because will be stopped. It is still, it's stopping, it's now stopped, okay. So we have stopped this machine, and let me first deattach this ISCSI storage. So when the machine is stopped, I have a new position in the menu, that's deattach. Okay, so when I click on deattach, then I see that this is no more attached, but I can reattach, of course. And before I will do it, I will show you the steps in XenServer which are important in order to start the configuration. So very practical, here is the console, but the console can be accessed also over PATI. So please start your PATI. Okay, you just enter your IP address and the standard port. Okay, the username is root and the password is exactly the one which you gave during configuration. The PATI access is better because all these special keyboard characters are working without any problem, because some keyboard characters are assigned to some action in the XenServer and will be some characters are not available in the console. So this is why it is much more practical to go over PATI. Okay, and the first tip which you get after logging in is type XS console. Here you have some important functions for XenServer. Of course, you don't need to type everything, just first characters and press tab. It will end for you the command. So here important, that should be blue, but because I'm in the console, it's red. Okay, so very practical thing is because Xen is working in different way than VMware. VMware give you option to add to inventory because the metadata are together with the virtual machine, Here the metadata are not saved along with the virtual machine, so you need to, if you want to use in different hosts, that will be very practical to backup the backup virtual machine metadata. And you can also schedule for daily backup. Okay, let's say you say daily, and then metadata will be on daily saved on selected volume. So here backup, and you can select your iSCSI virtual disk and backup on this disk. Of course now it's disconnected, so I will have problem to backup, but when you are connected, then you can start the backup. So this is a very nice tool to configure the server. We will need the console because we will need to add some changing for the multipath configuration file in order to tune the multipath. Okay, so we will switch to the console soon, and in order to activate multipath, you need to select your host. Please note that this menu is changing, depends on which position of menu you are. So when you are in the host, you have a host menu. When you are in the virtual machine, then you have virtual machine menu, right? So if we want to change the settings for the host, so we need select the host, and then we click with right mouse button, and we can enter so-called maintenance mode. In maintenance mode, we can change the settings like multipath, for example. So now you see here it shows the blue icon for the maintenance mode, and in the general, in properties, you can select the multipath. So first, when you will see that it will be unselected, so you just enable, and then you have selected multipath. A server is still in maintenance mode, so you will need to exit from the maintenance mode the same way. Just click on the right mouse button and exit maintenance mode. Okay, once mode is back to the regular, so you see the green ball button. Okay, green ball icon. So now let us reattach the iSCSI virtual disk. So I click on the right mouse button and then select reattach. Okay, the name, you can put your name. And here, because the DSS and target is working in so-called portal mode, so we just need to enter the one single IP address, and then all are accessible from the Xen side. So 192.168, let's say 10.250. I can also select 20.250 and discover IQNs. So after this, we see there is all possible combinations are available here. All they show my logical unit 150 gig, which is available over this target. So in my case, I will select this 10. Now discover the LUN logical unit. Attaching or reattaching is almost identical to creating new. In case of creating new, we'll just create a new. So here my volume is found. You will have one only, so it's very easy. And finish, it will just attach the iSCSI storage. Okay, I see the question. Is this working also with bonding interfaces? Yes, bonding can be used instead of multipath, but with multipath we should expect better performance. We have discussed the multipath and bonding in our blog, so if you want to have some more information, you can go to our blog, and there is one article about it. Okay. Bonding versus MPIO explained. So if you read this article, then you will learn what is the difference between both and which is better for which activity. It is possible, of course. Okay, so now, next question. The question was if anyone has a problem with audio. So if anyone has a problem with audio, please write on the chat window, so I will check whether there is a real problem. Okay, let us come back. So here we have this disk attached. If I go to storage, okay, when I go to XenServer and storage, here there is option to add new storage repository. So I click on new and I select ISCSI, next, and then the procedure is exactly the same. Okay, so now you know how to add ISCSI storage. So you just go to host menu, click here, and the storage and new. Okay, that's the how to add new ISCSI or new another storage fiber channel, for example. Okay, so now when I click on this storage, I see that there is already the Windows storage server machine, and you see there is my backup. When I go to console now, I will be able to really run the backup because my machine is connected. Okay, I can select and I can backup the settings. Okay. Good. So now next step will be setting the network interfaces. So I go to network, and in your case the fresh installation will show only the primary network. So we need to add another network cards, configure them for the next subnet. So we need subnet 10 and we need subnet 20. So that will be storage access over these two. You can of course use one only. This goes over configure. So we click on the configure button, and in the configure button we click on the new interface. So in the new interface you just select on which NIC it will go, and you just enter the IP address. Once IP address is entered, click on the OK button. Of course, OK is gray because I didn't enter anything. And then you have a new interface. You can also see that my interfaces are configured like this. You can change, edit the configuration. So I have added the 10.7 and I have added 20.7. Okay. So I have then two interfaces ready for my initiator to connect to our virtual IP on ISCSI target. Good, that was the network configuration, and once network configuration is done, you can add the ISCSI storage. Of course, network must be done first before adding. In my case, this was done before. This is why it looks like it looks so strange. Okay, so network is configured and the iSCSI storage is configured. Let us go to console in order to see whether multipath settings is okay. So I will go to console and see by meantime the settings is saved. So we can quit. And let me check the multi-path. So it's enough when you just start with the first and just click on the tab and it will finish the command for you. So multipath has different options like -LL. It shows the active path, or there is another one, let's say when you just help, then you see your possible commands. So the next one will be to view the settings. So we will see the important settings for our iSCSI array. So we see the selector, we have the round robin, and this is controller settings. Then the policy group is a multi-bus. And we have the minimum I/O is 2, so every 2 I/O we should have the round robin switching. This is not the case when you have a default settings, and in order to configure this you need to edit your multipath configuration file. So let us do it. I will use, they have a nano editor, so that's the very easy editor to use. So we go to edit, we are going to edit multipath conf. It is in etc directory. Same thing, et tab, and it is finishing then multi, and it is finding only multipath.conf. So we can enter this, and in the devices section, you have some vendor-specific configuration for the devices. And in our case, for the DSS V6, I just add the following. So that's the device, vendor, product, path selector, path grouping policy, and this round robin minimum I/O. So I add these settings. So I edited these settings. Without these settings, you will have active passive, it will be not active round robin, and this minimum I/O will be 100, so it can be that is not optimal, so we need more frequent settings, switching, so this is why I select 2. So these settings will be in our step-by-step presentation, which we are going to put on our web GUI, and also with a recorded presentation I will add this chart PDF, and on this chart PDF there is also I entered, you see there is a chart, and on the second page I enter what you need to edit in multipath.conf and what you need to enter, and there is one more settings which we need to do. We need to also enter some IP table settings, and I will show you how. Okay, so coming back here, so that was quite easy. After changing this, you need to exit. So exit is Control X. So let me press Control X. But it is not asking me to save because I didn't change anything. So let me change something. Okay, I just maybe enter some comment, and then when I Control X, it is asking me whether I want to save the modified buffer. So answering the Y, it says yes, and then file name is to write is exactly the same. So I just confirm, and it will update the file. So if I go one more time, you will see my new line is here. But of course, when I do not change anything and exit, then it is just exiting. Okay, so that was the one thing we need to change. And when you will run multipath LL, then you probably, in this case, you will see 3 paths. So 3 active, it will be SDC, SDB, and SDD. SDA in my case is a local disk. So if I put fdisk-L to show the disks, so you see the SDA, it's my local disk, and SDB and SDC, that's my logical ISCSI logical unit, which is seen dual because of the 2 paths. Multipath is enabled. If multipath will be disabled, then I will see only one single. One more settings is important because you will see the 3 instead of 2. I have already blocked this with the IP table settings, and these IP table settings I saved into rc.local. So let me go to nano rc.lo, that's enough, tabs. Aha, of course, it's not working because rc is in directory etc. Okay, rc.l tab, and it's finding. Okay, so in the original you will have only these lines or maybe some more, and you see I have added this line. So this is IP tables settings. -E, it means putting on the top. This is for input, and the source, that's my IP. I want to, how to say, drop all connections, all packets to 0 to 130, because I don't want that the Xen will access this over this physical IP from the first, for the first NIC. I want access only over the second and third NIC, so ETH1 and ETH2 in DSS, which are the virtual IP over there. So these settings will cause that this connection over first will be disabled. So once you type in, and then you will try multipath or multipath with R is reload, then you need to see only 2 active paths. Okay. Also, IP tables with command L is listing the current settings. So you see on the top I have this drop 192.168.230. If you want to remove it, then okay. Let me save it. Okay, Control X. Yes. Okay. I can type it. Okay. etc.local. Okay. When I use exactly this command, okay, and instead of so now I use it 3 times, and now when I will L, then you see there are 3 entries here. Okay, it's too many, so I can use the same command but with D, capital D, then I can remove. So I run one more time. So see, now there are 2 entries, and I remove one more time and show then it's only 1 entry. Okay, we have only 1 entry for this. So it is quite easy to use this command. So once we are done with the proper settings, multipath shows 2 active paths. then we are ready to start and try our how it works. So let us start the virtual machine. So I click on the right mouse button and select Start. Also, I can see how many paths are here. Let me see, when I go to storage. Okay, in the general, in the ISCSI disk in the general, when I click here, there is a multipath settings, and it shows 2 of 2 paths active. It is exactly the same answer, which is when you issue multipath -ll command on the console. And you see there are some system alerts here. If there is some failover with path, then you will see these commands here. So the server has experienced change in multipath status. Currently, all paths are active. So let me remove all of these, and we will see that probably when I will shut down one of the machines, we will see some short problem on the multipath, which is will run failover on the path because not the paths are switched exactly at the same time, and these will discover the problem and show system alarm. Okay, the server, the Windows server is probably started already. Okay, that's true because we see on the console. So I will log in over the console. It is probably more convenient for me. Okay. Good. Then we can, but probably I made mistake because I have the same resolution. So I will start this machine from here. Oh, it's not 6, it's 70. Okay, 70. Enter button. Okay, so we can start some activity on this machine. Maybe I will copy some files from network to the local disk. Okay, and the first try, we can, first try we can do also here. We can start manual failover. So primary active, everything is running. So the first step to testing this, we can start the manual failover. So the manual failover is running. I will make it smaller. Okay, we see that the first server is already in the suspend mode. The second server is secondary active. So now let me start the sync volumes. Okay, service is degraded, communication is stopped because the primary is in suspend. Both ping are okay. The reverse task is starting. And of course there is a difference because we are running the copy task on the virtual machine, but the difference is already applied. And then we can run failback. So running the failback, we will see the primary is still suspend. Okay. The virtual machine which is working on this server is copying the data all the time. Okay. That's the case. The storage is here, and we see we have some system alarms. It means it was a short, that's the case, that's exactly the, during failback probably we've got the short message about failover path, and it is registered here. But as you see, everything looks nice. Okay, so this virtual machine is running, and we have a primary active, and we have of course secondary in passive mode. And that is the first try of ISCSI failover. Let me see on the performance, when I go to the performance and go to NIC, on the NIC we will see some, on the receive side, yes, we receive the data. So that's not. This chart is a bit too small in order to show it properly. Maybe I will start IOMeta, then we will see more traffic, because this copy traffic is not so big traffic. But we're supposed to see on this chart that both paths are active, or there is traffic on more than one path. Okay, then let me run another test with the ISCSI failover. So let's say we update the server. So let me simulate it. For example, I will go and download new build. I have the latest build, so I can browse and download the latest build one more time. Okay. It takes some time to connect to the another server. So we can upload the another build and reboot the server. So after reboot the server is supposed to come back as a suspend mode, and then we can run the fail back from the secondary server. Okay. I have some problem with accessing my ISO images. One more time. Okay. Okay, that's the one. Oh, I don't have latest image. Okay, I will not search for the images right now. Let me reboot the first server. So one more time, secondary is passive. Let us see what the virtual machine is doing. Okay, we can delete all this data, and we can, of course, copy one more time. Great. Then we can just reboot the first machine. So shut down. And click on restart. We have, of course, a message that this is ISCSI Failover, but that's the case we want to reboot this machine. So in such case, we will observe that the secondary machine will become active. And let us see how the virtual machine is doing. So virtual machine is doing this copying. Service we have in the degraded mode, of course. Secondary is now active, and the communication between both is failed because the first server probably not answering because it's just rebooting. Okay, we just wait for the connection, but it will fail because the server just disappear. The browser has a quite long timeout. Okay, now recognize the problem. Okay, so while waiting on the first machine to reboot and see what kind of status is, we can prove what's going on the XenServer. So this virtual disk is okay. Here we see the console, everything is okay. And the virtual machine, of course, is continue working with copy job. Okay, so with this case, we were able to just manual failover, manual failback. We are able to reboot the primary server. We can also simulate some network problems. I will show you how to simulate the network problems. For example, removing the cable or maybe switching off the port in the switch. There is also another option. You can just test with the power off, but power off is easier test than even shutdown or manual failover. It works much more easier from the technical point of view than this manual failover. Okay, so waiting for the first machine to reboot. Still not there. Maybe by meantime I will just add one more information about the XenServer itself. I want to mention that we are using the latest Xen version. So this is version 5.6 and the so-called feature pack 1. So please upgrade if you have the just 5.6 to feature pack 1 because there are a few fixes here. For example, in the performance, the load for CPU is properly balanced, which was not the case in the first one. There is also some few other fixes in this version. Okay, that was the version information. Let me see. Still not there. It takes 2 minutes to reboot. By meantime, I want to mention that on the website you can find the next webinar. On the webinar, we have the webinars planned in the US, so you will get the invitation as well. And that here the webinars, next one will be in the German language, and then the same topic, and there are some other plans webinars. So you can find what is interesting here. In the library, okay, in the library we have the how to resources, and in how to resources you will find also plenty of PowerPoint presentations which are showing step by step. These settings about the Xen will put on this site very soon. Okay, let me check. The server is back, and what is very interesting right now, what is the status of this server in ISCSI Failover, of course. So we check to change to ISCSI Failover, and you see after reboot we always go to suspend mode, right? Okay, so right now the secondary is active, and what we can do, we can very quick click on the sync button, and then the synchronization, reverse synchronization will start from the secondary active server and make the both server in the identical mirror state, and after this we can move activity to the primary server again. So by meantime it was copying some data. This is why it will take some time. Okay, this copy job is done. So I will remove this data again and start copying again. But we have all the time some traffic here. Good. So we still need 30 seconds to move the deltas. You see, it is 150 gig, but the deltas was only 3 gig, and the system is moving the deltas very efficient way. So let's say when you will break the connection for, let's say, 1 or 2 days, from the bigger volumes, and the maximum volume for the replication is 16 terabytes, it will take only minutes or maybe 1 hour to move the deltas here. So now we are consistent, and then we can move the activity to the primary. So let us have a look what's going on the virtual machine. So virtual machine is copying the data all the time, and we are failover in progress. Okay, you can make it bigger now. So this node is passive already. We can see that the copy was having some problems as was flowing down, and the primary server is active, and the secondary server is of course passive right now. Okay, and our virtual machine works, and let us see on the errors. So this time it was not new alert because we have 1 alert only. but this is a kind of regular thing which may happen here. Okay, so with this we have maybe option to start on the virtual machine. I will cancel this and we can start. Iometer is not running a very reliable. In some cases it can cause problem for the machine running on the Xen. But let us start. Okay, I have some 32 sequential read pattern prepared. Okay. So now it is reading from the virtual machine with 32K pattern. Maybe this is not a very big traffic. We will try to make a bit bigger. But now you see I have two charts for receive. So this NIC is receiving here and this NIC is receiving here. So NIC 2 and NIC 3 are receiving data. Okay, and that's the iometer traffic. And it shows that on the two NIC, so NIC 2 and NIC 3 is receiving data because I'm reading on the virtual machine iometer. And let us check whether this is NIC 2 and 3 in network. You see network 2 and 3, that's exactly my virtual IP addresses when I'm reading. Okay, we can try. Same thing actually you can see here. That's the NIC 2, NIC 3 receives, that's the pilot, and NIC 3 receives, okay? It's a bit gray, this is why I made another chart. Okay, so we can try also to read a bit faster. I can stop it and start to read 64K. I'm not writing because my software rate is and the system on the running software rate is quite slow. So then it will be difficult to go over 120 megabytes per second. So this is a bit faster, but still not very, very fast. Okay, I was stopping the iometer, then starting iometer again. So it shows the traffic on the both sides. Okay. And let us try also with 256. Okay, I have another one. 256 sequential read. It may go a bit faster from time to time. Let me see the questions. Okay. So we made the experience that the automatic failover takes too long for our XenServer. The system is also on the sun so that they lose their connection to the target. How we can prevent this? So make sure that you will make the similar configuration as I shown today. Also, you can use the DNI access function on the DSS GUI, that it will show the target over this IP which you are going to access. And also you can use IP tables, which I shown today, to block access to unwanted IPs, right? If you will not manage this, just download the logs, describe the problem, and send to our support. Next question. Okay, let me this test later. Our performance is so low. Okay. Here you see I'm not getting very good performance. With 256 kilobyte, I'm getting something like 100, it depends, 120 to 180 megabytes per second. But this is 256 K, and I'm testing this, as you see, on 4 workers, and in every, I'm testing the drive C, of course, because the local drive it's exactly on the ISCSI, because the virtual machine is on the ISCSI. I'm testing this with 10 outstanding I/O, and my access specification is 256 read. Okay, I will stop it and show it to you, the 256 sequential read. So I made 256K sequential 100% and sequential 100% read. Okay, that's the test which I'm running here. Okay, so during running this test, I can observe the traffic on the Xen. It is kind about half of gig on every NIC, a bit more. We will work on tuning this, and if we get some better results, we will post on our knowledge base or on our website in how to resources. But so far, that's kind of maximum which I'm getting today with the XenServer. Okay. Good. So if there is some more question, please write down in the chat window right now, because the time is over. We are going to finish. So I see the next question. Could you send me the video or the link to the webinar to the email address? Yes, we will send you. Today evening I will send the video. Next question, why must the virtual IP be completely different network? It don't need to be in the completely different network, but it is easier to configure, because if the two addresses are in the same network, then you need to configure the static routing. So the configuration is a bit more complicated. We were showing this in the past webinars, where two NICs are in the same network. It is possible, but you need to have the more complicated configuration, and this is complicated enough. But if there is a must, no problem, we have such an option. Next question. Can you send me video? Of course, I will just write down copy the chat window and I will send the video, no problem. Next question, on resync, is there a way to calculate how long it will take? Don't need to calculate, because you will see it when you start the resync task. It shows to you the speed, and it shows to you how long it will take to sync. So you will see this on the window. Next question, how does it work with the pool of Xen hosts? Do they require separate ISCSI volumes for each host? No, the Xen, they will access the same, because this is a cluster file system, so they will access the same LUN, and one is active, another is passive. Depends which kind of configuration of Xen you can configure. There is plenty of different options. But exactly the same way like VMware, Xen has a cluster of course file system, so they can access concurrently the same LUN. Next question, can you add to FTP? Yes, this will be, the presentation will be of course on the FTP. I'm having network problems.